Joel is just so cute. I love Joel.
I'm a big Joel fan. Canada loves you. Your house guests love you. Did a great job.
It's okay to be a little weird because we all have our weird quirks and stuff. And
Joel is the best. Joel, you're the winner, and I will shout loudest. Don't you worry.
Joel's a really smart guy.
Let's hear it, please, for Joel.
Hello everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me for Random Thoughts. This is the podcast where I give my random thoughts on a selection of different topics. Celebrity Big Brother is coming up on February the 7th, so I thought it would be a great time for me to start up a podcast to give my opinion on something that I know a lot about, and that is Big Brother. And for my first podcast, I thought it would be a great idea to bring in somebody who got a very small taste of what it was like to be on Big Brother, but also somebody who knows a thing or two on what it's like to be a celebrity. A lot of people might know him as the longtime spokesperson for The Brick. He is a longtime personality and presenter for radio and television. Big Brother fans will know him as the host of Flip It to Win for season number 4 and season number 5. Michael Bell. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Joel. It's a pleasure to be, I think, your first actual guest on the show, right?
That is correct, yeah.
Well, that's terrific. I'm honored and I'm really pleased to do this.
It's my pleasure. I told myself when I decided I was going to start up a podcast, I needed somebody big to just sort of hit the ground running and grow that audience. And then the first thing that clicked in my mind
wasn't available, so you gave me a call.
Hey, you take what you can get. You take it when you can get them, right? And
exactly right.
You know what?
That's the secret to a long time career, right?
There you go. You know what, Mike? Since we chatted about a week ago, and since you just mentioned right now, like, hey, I didn't have this one person, so I called you and stuff. It's a story that I don't think a lot of people know about you, and it's something that I learned about you when I chatted with you about a week ago, is that The Brick, one of the things that many Canadians know you from as that face for The Brick for all those years, well, you weren't actually the first choice for The Brick.
I know. You know what, Joel, it was really funny about that is I only discovered that a couple of years ago when I was working with their first choice, Jim Elliott, his daughter. Jim has passed on now. But she and I were working together on a job. And she told me this story at lunch, and my jaw just fell onto the ground. I mean, I started doing this in 1975 when I was in broadcasting, and I was over in Edmonton with CFRN AM and FM. Well, they also have TV there. So it was kind of a natural for any of the celebrities or the personalities, anybody who is working on the broadcast side, to have an opportunity to get into TV. And that's literally how I got it. But the audition process was invisible. I had no idea anybody else was reading for it or auditioning for it or trying for it. And it turned out that the Jim Elliott, the guy who was the first choice, was already under contract. And so the job fell to me all those years ago.
And the rest is history.
And the tens of thousands of, I can't even count the number of commercials that I have done for The Brick through the years. And all of them were a lot of fun. Doing the stuff on stages was always great. And for a number of years, I actually had a female cohort, Bonnie Valavand, I think for about 5 or 6 years. And we had the most fun, a tremendous sense of humor that she had, and terrific times. So it's been a really wonderful opportunity for me. I mean, who gets a gig like this? Hey, Joel, you ought to know. You're an actor.
Yes, absolutely. No question about it. I guess for you, I'm curious, as somebody who, at least for years while you were doing The Brick, I imagine you probably got a lot of stares from people who maybe didn't necessarily know that, hey, that's Michael Bell, but they knew you as like, hey, you're the guy from somewhere. Was that awkward when people sort of like gave you the stare down and stuff? And how do you handle people looking at you a little bit weirdly like that?
That's an interesting question, because it kind of depends on everybody's personality, I guess. In my particular case, in the first years that I started doing this in the 70s and certainly through the 80s, my gosh, it was crazy then. The broadcasts, any station, anytime, we're going to have commercials from the Brick. I mean, it was an inundation. And for the most part, during those years, the company was local. Now there are over 200 stores, but they started out in Edmonton, Alberta. And so the volume of exposure was incredible. And so there was just no way that I was not going to be recognized anywhere I went. And I found it particularly tough after a while. I'm not a kind of guy who sort of soaks up the the limelight that way. You know, as an actor, I love to do, and I'd love to have your purview on this too. As a performer, the art of doing that is the fun that I get out of it. Performing as the presenter for the Brick, or doing a play on stage, or doing a television program as an actor, the work is what really matters. The other stuff, I could, I really not that interested in it. But I was so, stuck in having people recognize me, I actually moved out of the market. I did. I moved to Vancouver before the company opened there, and I felt much more at ease being sort of just myself.
Yeah, it's an interesting point too, because I think a lot of times people mistake for people who want to become actors, the people that are doing it at least for the right reasons, in my humble opinion, and obviously I was told this through teachers throughout my training being an actor, is that the fame comes with it when you're successful. You can't avoid that. You get cast in some big name movies, you get cast as the person for the Brick, you do a bunch of voiceovers or whatever, or you're a Broadway star, whatever it is. The fame comes with it because audiences come to see the show, but somebody who is serious about it and somebody who wants to do it does it because they love to tell a story. They love to step out of their comfort zone, or step into a different role that gets them a thrill. It's not the audience and the amount of follows that you get on Twitter or things like that the people who do it for the right reasons do it for. That just comes along with it. The more successful you are. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've never had so much fun, really, as doing plays on stage, because there's an immediate rush and a connection with the audience out there. And the sense of, hey, we're all in this together. We're on the stage. You're in the audience. Let's connect here. That's the fun. That gives me tremendous pleasure. And I miss that. I haven't done stage acting for a long time. But being cast as the person who does the Brick nowadays is very much different from the throwing fastball days back in the 70s and 80s. Now, the character that has been developed is more comedic. It's more like sort of the Mike Bell, the uber fan of the company, and having humor in there has made a tremendous difference, not only in how the commercials are received, but how much fun it is to do them. It just really is a riot. And the folks who produce these things work very hard on the creative, and I can't wait to do the next one, because they really have their thing together, and we always have a lot of fun. And it's fun for me because it's more like acting than just being a pitch man.
Now, obviously, for years you were just kind of known maybe as that guy. I recognize that face, but Season 4 comes around for Big Brother Canada, and all of a sudden you're getting name dropped in the diary room by all of us all the time, and shout outs in Season 4 and Season number 5. Were you approached differently on the streets by people after those times, because people were like, oh, well, I knew him as the Brick guy and I know him as Mike Bell? And if you were, did you like that as opposed to how it was before?
Well, I didn't feel much different about it, because being recognized is being recognized one way or another. It's an honor to have somebody look at you and say, yeah, I think I know that guy. But for the most part, if, I'm wearing my glasses or something like that, people will just look at me like, is that like a cousin of mine? Or that kind of thing. But I'll tell you one thing, Joel, is just because after all these years, it's the voice thing. If I speak to somebody, that's it. Then they'll look at me right away because they know the pitch of my voice. Doing Flip It to Win on Big Brother was a real treat because Flip It to Win started out as an online game show for the company, and it took off with it was amazing. It was just terrific fun. And then we did it live a few times out in the field, and that was fun. And then the idea of it, I guess, progressed through the ranks, and when the Brick became sponsors of Big Brother, the idea, I'm sure, from the Big Brother executives, well, hey, you guys got a really good thing going here, and it'll probably really marry up well with what we're trying to do with the house guests. And it really did. It was really fun. It was great.
I'm glad you brought up that point because that actually leads me to my next thing about Flip It to Win. You weren't in the house in season number 5 or season number 4 as a house guest, like always watching your back and stuff, but you got a bit of a taste of, what we were playing for, seeing a bit of the behind the scenes and the camera, and also like maybe seeing how hard everybody was fighting for that power of veto because there's a lot to play for. $100,000 is not chunk change. So I'm curious from a bit of an outsider's perspective, what was the experience like the very first time that you hosted Flip It to Win, just being on that podium, presenting and seeing everybody sort of fighting hard, the reactions and whatnot from everyone?
It was overwhelming, and I'm not kidding. I was absolutely, I've done a lot of stuff in my life, but the production level for Big Brother is an amazing machine. And once you go through the technical outside layer of the show itself and into the Big Brother house, it's like another world. Like really, it's two worlds. It's the outside world of those folks looking at you and editing everything to do with you guys. And then on the inside, with all the actual characters, you folks in competition. And I had no idea what it was going to be like. As soon as I stepped through the door from the exterior, with all dark, all black, all the time, people all dressed in black or ninja outfits, so you can't see their faces. And then I can't tell you how many cameras. I don't know how many. I could have been 30. I don't know. A huge jib camera. All of these people work in the show, and then you step into the Big Brother house itself. And you guys, I don't know how on earth you would have kept up the energy level that was present when I was there. I don't know how it would be, how possible to do that. And you were there how many days? Like ridiculous.
Well,
number,
myself
right?
was 70. I think the time that you hosted was considerably earlier than when you hosted it on season number 5, because 5, I think it was around the midway point of the game when the Flip It to Win happened. Ours, I believe it was the second week, and I was still kind of personally on a bit of a cloud 9 at that point because I was like, wow, I'm getting to do this experience that tens of thousands of people in Canada, could only dream of and have tried out God knows how many times, and I am getting this experience. I was feeling that at that point, and also I think at that point, week 2, I was getting really comfortable with everybody that was in there. But I can't imagine what it would have been like for somebody like Shari or Levita or some of the people that were nominated at that point, that sort of tension to have to sort of win at all costs. That was it. It was interesting. I never was usually in a position like that in the game until very later on. So that was cool for me, and also something I don't get to see on a first-hand close-up basis. So it was very interesting.
Let me ask you this: when at the point that we met, you and I met,
yes,
being a couple of weeks in, was there? It's my Chihuahua. We have 4 dogs, so they're gonna chirp up. But by that point, a couple of weeks into, had you already developed a strategy to the game?
I mean, I had an idea of the way that I wanted to play the game, but I also told myself that there is going to be things thrown at you. There are going to be twists that you're not going to be prepared for. They're going to find something unique. That's the beauty of the game of Big Brother, and especially Big Brother Canada. I feel like the producers find some incredible twists that you can be the biggest fan in the world, and Arissa will come on the screen and be like, here's what's going on. I would have never guessed in a million years they would have done something like, hey, Nick and Phil, you guys are brothers. You're playing as one. Like, it's crazy some of the ideas that come up with. But I definitely had a strategy, and I tried to look at it more as like, what are my biggest strengths in the real world, and how do I use those strengths to my advantage in the game, but don't show them too much, because it can be a bit of a catch-22 when you're in that game. You can do everything really well, but if you're doing everything too well and everybody notices it, then people are going to want to get rid of you. So I tried to like be a little bit more subtle, and I did a lot of preparation, to be honest, going into it on how I see myself, but also I got other people's perspectives about like, how do they see me, how am I perceived with them, and how do I maybe deflect that off so it doesn't come off as a threat. I did probably a lot more work and research than most people, I feel, do when they go into the Big Brother experience.
Well, maybe that comes from you being an actor, you know?
Yeah.
And so you are polishing up a performance here and a character. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you this. Of the people that you met as house guests, are any of them still friends of yours?
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's sort of like when you finish university, you finish high school and things like that. Obviously, when you go through that kind of experience, you develop a closeness, you develop a bond with people. But once the experience ends, then it's back to the real world. And contrary to what most fans on the outside will think, you're recognized a lot more, but we just for the most part, lead our regular lives. We don't have Hollywood agents calling us and wanting us to do big specials. We don't have people wanting to star in the next big sitcom or anything like that. We go back to the grind and pursue whatever we are hoping to pursue at that point. And
well, it still has to be a leg up, though. I mean, really. I mean, there's nothing like national television to help your career.
Yes, you're 100% correct about that. It definitely helps, but it's up to you on how you use that to your benefit. It's not all going to come to you, and I think that's sometimes a bit of the misconception of people that go into that experience, is that they assume that it's going to just all of a sudden lead to stuff, and people are going to be calling your phone all of a sudden. And it doesn't work like that in society, whether you've been like a polished and trained actor, whether you're the son of a really famous actor and stuff. You have to build up your network in your own way and find how to brand yourself. It's not just going to come to you.
So what do you think of the idea of the celebrity version of the show?
Well, that's a perfect segue. It's definitely one that's been used in the UK, definitely. I'm very interested to see how it's going to pan out with these house guests who are going to be playing the North American version of it, which maybe is a little bit more cunning, a little bit more cutthroat, I would say, than the UK version or some of the other international versions, where it's based solely on your popularity and how you are in the house. So I'm curious to know if some of these celebrities are going to be playing. First of all, how well they know the game, but what reasons they are doing this experience for.
I know in the U.S. version, Omarosa is going to be on the show.
Yes.
And she, I mean, this is a woman who worked at the White House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I mean, she's definitely had a career already with the president of the United States on the show that he did, and then working in the White House, and now she's doing Celebrity Big Brother down here. It should be, I mean, people are going to be intrigued either in Canada and the United States, wherever they're doing these celebrity versions. I think they're going to be huge hits.
No, I absolutely agree. I think it's a concept that they've been wanting to do for a while, but it's a different thing to have somebody who is a celebrity, whether it's somebody who's been on TV for a while or a host of a TV show or a professional athlete and stuff. It's more it's more difficult to say to those people like, hey, put away 3 months of your life. And I think that's why the version is considerably shorter than it is before, which is like another interesting point, I feel like. And I'm curious to know your perspective on this as somebody who is recognized by people on the streets every once in a while. How would you play the game of Big Brother, the celebrity version, if it was like the American one is going to be coming up in February, where it is the North American style of play? How would you approach it, and what would your strategy be?
Well, the Canadian version is, in my opinion, a much more polished version than the U.S. one. I'm sorry to say, and I've seen them both. And I particularly think the Canadian version is richer in character. So I would say, if it were me, and I'd love this, I would look at, like you did, I would say, okay, what are my strengths on the street, outside of the house? What do I know that these people, what do I know about myself that these people won't have a clue about me? And then I would work at that character and present it consistently, but in the background, have a couple of alternatives that I can, like, really wild out there ideas that I can use as tools later down the road. So I would try to befriend somebody who was the polar opposite of my own character. I'm quite a quiet person myself, so I would probably be looking for somebody who is a bit more outrageous as a character and kind of stay in the shade there a bit, and then bring out my own Michael Bell character, the one I use on television, when I needed it. And that's a big character, too. Absolutely.
And I think it's... I like that you mentioned Big Brother Canada as your favorite, because I feel like you're right. It definitely shows who we are and who we are as characters more so than I feel like the American or some of the other ones do. But I think what's tricky about Big Brother Canada, which we might see some of it in Celebrity Big Brother, is that there's audience voting and there's certain twists sometimes that are not necessarily in your control. So because there is some small little elements every once in a while about like, hey, you need to not only be good with everybody in the house, but you need to have a certain degree of popularity. So there's a bit of a balance between playing to the cameras to where you're popular enough that you're not going to get screwed over by, say, a twist where the audience votes for HOH or votes somebody off or something like that. So it's an interesting balance, and I'm curious if there's going to be any of that. But I'm curious for you, Michael Bell, which version do you think you would thrive better in? The North American version, the more cutthroat, where it's more focused on making alliances and being good with your house guests, or the UK and some of the other international versions where you need to just be endearing more so to the public that is watching?
I think that the latter is probably where I would thrive more. The one that where you use wile and guile to have people think of you very highly and kindly, and I think I would do better at that than the savage jungle beast action that goes on in the United States version. That's for sure. I really do. I don't think I'd stand a chance, put it that way.
Fair enough. Would you play differently knowing that it's going to be a much faster game? This season, it's only going to be 3 weeks because that's sort of the amount of time I feel most celebrities probably were like, we can put away a little bit of time, but then we have to get back to all our public appearances and things that we do. There's going to be 2 evictions a week, and there's going to be a couple of double evictions. Would knowing that it's going to be a much shorter game, would that change your approach and you would just go in there and hit the ground running, or would you still play the same approach as you would, say, a 3-month game?
No, I would go for the longer game, even though I know that you're collapsing the game time. I still think that there's validity in doing it that way, and only because you and I both know this is really about editing. So, you're also, it sounds bizarre, but you're also working the crew. You're working the producer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the more that you can give them of yourself and the more intriguing that you come across, the better it's going to be. So somebody who's really outrageous and crazy and all this kind of stuff initially is going to have success, but that probably isn't going to win the game. I just don't believe that.
No, I would 100% agree with that. So a lot of these celebs, some of them are big names, some of them maybe were big names years ago. One thing a lot of people don't know about you is that in addition to your years of doing many different commercials, you're also the host with your wife of a podcast called Wrinkled Not Dead. And on that podcast, you talk about advice when it comes to aging, and one thing I want to know about is you talk about how to stay relevant the older that you get. Do you feel like going on reality TV, and specifically Big Brother, is a way to stay relevant?
Absolutely, of course. Somebody told me years ago, don't say no to anything, because you never know what's going to transpire when you agree to do something. And that's the fun. I mean, we only go through life one time. What I find out now in doing Wrinkled Not Dead with my wife, Jen, and we're on episode 86. We published 86 yesterday. Well, I find that our audience has got to catch up to us. Podcast listenership is way, way, way up. But there are 200, I think the last statistic that I read was there are about 250,000 podcasts. Well, that's 250,000 little tiny radio stations talking about tiny elements of society or self-help like we are. And I find that our people who are in their 50s haven't got a clue about what's going on with social media. They're way behind on this stuff. And my view is I'm going to be out there, and so is my wife, Janet. We're going to drag these folks along with us into learning and developing skills in social media. And podcasting is part of it. You just have to know about Instagram. You have to know about Snapchat. You have to know Facebook. Everybody knows. But, I mean, all these other elements and new formats are exciting. But people who are over 50 tend to disregard that, or they think that they're done with that. That's nonsense. It's rubbish. You've got to stay current. You really do, or your mind goes to mush.
What advice would you yourself give anybody who is going into this celebrity edition of Big Brother?
Well, play it for everything it's worth. Whatever you're going to do in there, do it 100%, particularly if it's the celebrity folks, because, as you say, I mean, they're going to have a limited time to do this. So it's going to take a lot of energy, and you're going to have to be able to sustain the energy. Now, people who are performers already, maybe not, and athletes as well, you'd have to say this, it's the stamina. They're going to have to understand that the stamina is going to win the game, in my opinion. That's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to just keep producing content, as if, speaking of social media. You just keep making the content, and the Big Brother machine will devour it.
You hosted 2 Flip It to Win competitions.
Yep.
You obviously were sort of the mind behind it at the break beforehand or so. What is the key from an insider's perspective on how to win the competition, Flip It to Win?
How to win Flip It to Win?
Yes.
Pay attention, because they're going to sneak up. It's never just one game. That's the thing with Flip It to Win. It's usually 2-stage or 3-stage before you get to like the ultimate final contest. And so at first, it's usually something that's physical. And so you've got to be roaring around and doing whatever the direction is of that part of the game and thinking that through. But also, you have to have situational awareness as well of what's transpired on the show up until this day and this moment. Because the producers love, it seems to me, they just love to bring out stuff that's taken place within the game already. So you have to basically keep your own internal camera running to keep tabs on what's been going on with all the other characters, because you may need that.
If you yourself were on Celebrity Big Brother or any type of Big Brother, what would be the most difficult thing that Michael Bell would have to deal with in that experience?
Well, I tell you, Joel, I went to boarding school as a kid, and so I lived with like 50, 60 other guys, and the boarding school experience was great when I was a kid, but being back basically in boarding school again might be a little bit trickier. And I remember them leading me through the back part of the house up to the stage where we were going to do the performance. So we went through the back rooms and cut through the kitchen, and I'm walking through the kitchen, and there's cans of food here, and there's like macaroni over there, and oh, by the way, here's a pair of men's underwear on the floor over here. I don't know if I want to go back to the dorm again.
Fair enough. I got one last one. I'm just curious, since you brought it up. We didn't actually talk beforehand about some of the cast members, but when we chatted a week ago, the cast wasn't officially revealed. You mentioned one of them, and I've gotten a lot of things from social media from people about like that they don't like the house guests that are picked, and everybody's obviously entitled to their own opinion. I'm curious from you. I'm gonna name off the celebrities that are on, and I'm curious how many of them you actually know of. So Omarosa, you've heard. First off, I guess, do you know her from anything else, or is it just from her working with Trump?
I know her from, I think, the president had a television program of his own where he fired people. I didn't follow that one, but I know her from that show, seeing clips of it.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people actually have, a lot of the cast from Celebrity Big Brother have connections with Donald Trump, loose connections, and a lot of it is through Celebrity Apprentice. Yes, so I don't know, it'll be interesting to watch, I guess. Let's see, Mark Mcgrath.
Is that a country music guy?
He is a singer from a band in the 90s called Sugar Ray.
Okay, well,
he was also on Celebrity Apprentice. He was also
half a mark.
He was also on Celebrity Apprentice as well. So there you go. Shannon Elizabeth.
No idea.
American Pie. She was on all of the ones. I don't think many people know her from anything else. She played Jim's love interest, one of Jim's love interests in the American Pie series.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Fun fact.
Fun fact. We do that on Wrinkled Not Dead. We have fun fact. One of our fun facts was how much does a cumulus cloud weigh?
I don't even. Okay.
It's about 1.1 million pounds.
Okay, stupid question for you since you asked that. What is a cumulus cloud? I feel really dumb.
Okay, that's the big puffy guys that you see forming up in the later afternoon. So there's a lot of water in there. I don't know how many kilograms that is right off the top of my head. But.
The doppelganger to the Michelin Man, so to speak, or the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, there's the big puffy things that,
okay.
the pretty one.
Meta World Peace. Heard of him? He's formerly known, he's a former basketball player. He went by the name Ron Artest as a basketball player. He's now known as Meta World Peace. I'll take that as a no.
Gee, I don't. I mean, a big whiff on that one, I'm telling you.
All right, well,
I mean, I knew some guys from the Phoenix Suns, but that's about it. So I'm not a big basketball fan.
Well, surely you're a fan of The Real Housewives, because the next one is Brandi Glanville.
No, my wife watches those. I don't watch it.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I'd rather read a book than watch. I can't stand. I don't like that show much.
Ugh,
I mean, I can see the humor in it, and Jen does too. That's why she watches it. But then, she likes Wendy Williams and stuff too. So
Sure. Keshia Knight Pulliam.
oh man, I must be like the most clueless guy. This is embarrassing. That's a celebrity. That's great.
It's honestly a lot of these sometimes, and this is why I wasn't too shocked when I saw this cast. Was a lot of them were celebrities that were like well known back in the day, but none of them were ever, whether they're actors or basketball players or whatnot, none of them were ever like sort of the featured guy. Meta World Peace, who was Ron Artest, was a valuable player to his team, but he was not the featured guy. He wasn't the Kobe Bryant on the Lakers when he played for them, right? He was the guy that was on there, but he was not the guy, and none of these people were ever the guy. Shannon Elizabeth, Jason Biggs is the person everyone thinks of when they think of American Pie, the movie series, is the star of the show. Not all these other people. Keshia Knight Pulliam was on The Cosby Show. She played the little girl, Rudy, on The Cosby Show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what a delightful character she was, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I'll test your theater knowledge here. Marissa Janet Winokur.
No.
Tony Award winner for the musical Hairspray. She won.
Oh, Hairspray. Okay.
Yeah. Big fan of Hairspray, are you?
I'm bald, so it doesn't really matter to me. No, I saw Hamilton, though.
Did you like Hamilton?
I saw Hamilton in Los Angeles, and it was, it was unspeakably different. I didn't know what to think. I'd never seen anything like that before. Maybe the benchmark in my Broadway or any major theater experience would have been Cats back in the day when it came out. I saw that in New York with the original cast, Betty Buckley and all these people. But Hamilton was just astonishing. That was great. Everybody should see that one.
Adriana Gutierrez. She is one of the lesser known celebrities. I guess if you're into like watching beauty pageants and the Miss Americas and Congeniality type stuff, you might know who she is. Yeah. She's actually, it's sad to say, but most people, if you were to Google her, were to see, do you remember in 2015, Steve Harvey made quite a gaffe on a beauty pageant show, like bigger than the Oscars when they named La La Land as the best picture, and then it wasn't the best picture. That. Yeah, so Adriana Gutierrez was Miss Universe for maybe about 30 seconds or so before Steve Harvey made that horrendous gaffe. So she is gonna be on Celebrity Big Brother.
Well, she will do well. In my belief that with her experience doing beauty pageants certainly isn't going to hurt.
No, I would agree.
You want to talk about cutthroat? I used to judge those things down here in the United States. I was well known enough in doing things like that on television here as well that I got invited to be a guest or a judge on those, and it's hard. It's tough. They really work. It was quite an experience doing that stuff. So I think she'll do well.
Did they give you a criteria when you were judging on, like, you got to watch for this, or you got to be aware of like the Queen-like wave or what they say in their answers? How do you judge a competition like that?
Yes, but for the most part, the selection process here for a judge was that, okay, you're on TV. We expect you to think as a TV person, observing these people and how they are as performers from a perspective of a television person. And so, there were criteria about some things, but it was pretty loose about that. And I got the impression that, the women judges on the panel would always kind of be thinking, let's take this guy to school here. He doesn't know what he's doing. But still, nonetheless, it was obviously clear to me the people who I wanted to have moved forward in the contests. So they had more trouble with this and that idea or concept bugging them about the performances. I just bulled along saying, oh, this is the one. I like this one. She's good.
And two more here. So Chuck.
Okay. Oh dear. Oh
yes,
dear.
2 more. You'll be fine. And then the torture is over. Don't you worry. Chuck Little.
I was hoping you were going to say Chuck Norris. And
No, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chuck Little, I haven't the clue. See, this is now bugging me because maybe I should be out there more. Here's the guy who's saying staying relevant. On the other hand, these guys are beginning to sound a little bit more obscure than I would have hoped.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Chuck.
Former mixed martial artist. He was a UFC guy, did Dancing with the Stars, did Celebrity Apprentice. I personally didn't know of him either, but that's just because I never sort of captured the craze that many other people did in sports when it came to the MMA stuff. It just seemed like an excuse to bash and really hurt yourself. I wasn't into that stuff.
This is not a guy who we want to have annoyed at us.
Yes, no,
Joel.
For sure.
Yeah, so we think he's got a great chance of winning, don't we?
Well, I mean, if he uses that, not so much, because you can do a lot of things when you're on Big Brother, but the one probably biggest no-no of all is that you cannot ever physically harm anybody when you're in there. So he is not
tell you that up front?
Yes, 100%. There is absolutely zero tolerance, and we've seen people get kicked out in the US version for multiple reasons. But yes, no, the producers sit you down and are like, you know what? You can say what you want, be aware of what you're going to say, because everybody's going to be watching you at all times. So, watch out for that. Whatever you say, you can say whatever you want. You're entitled to your opinions on anything, but the one biggest thing you absolutely cannot do, and they will not tolerate, is any sort of physical violence whatsoever. That is 100%
Okay,
out.
well, now you got me curious. Was there like a litany of these kind of rules and regs that you had to follow, or that you were taught?
There is a long list of paperwork. There's hundreds and hundreds of documents that you look at in order to make sure that you are very clear what is acceptable, what is not acceptable when you go into the Big Brother experience, and that is without a doubt at the top of the list. And we have seen it before on US versions of Big Brother specifically, where there was one guy one time very early on who didn't like that somebody was saying stuff about him or talking behind his back, and he just went outside and he threw a chair across the room. He didn't hit anybody or anything, but that alone, just him having an outburst like that, was enough for the producers to put him on notice, and he was kicked out because of that. And there was a person on season 14 of the US version who was ejected from the game for headbutting another person who just lost his cool.
That's not a good idea.
It happens in those situations. Sometimes tensions get high. There's a lot to play with. There's a lot to play for in a game like this, and sometimes people have a hard time controlling themselves. So yeah, that is 100% violence never tolerated in the Big Brother house.
Well, I tell you, one thing that we share now forevermore is that I don't think you'll ever forget your experience on Big Brother.
Nope.
And I know that I'm not going to forget my experience on Big Brother either. Because, there's certain landmarks that you come across in your life and career. And for me, that was one, and I'll bet it is for you too.
Oh, without a doubt, 100%. I definitely, went much farther than I was expecting. And, aside from winning, I take things in perspective and I tell myself, you know what, I did almost everything that one could possibly do. I got to win a head of household, and somebody who is a super fan, that's such a dream to get that letter from home. I got to win a competition. Got to go in the diary room, cast my votes to evict. I was on slop for 5 weeks, which is an eternity if you're just only eating the same food all the time. So all things considered, it's something that will stay with you. And I think for the most part, people that go into that experience go into it and leave it with a very positive outlook on things. So that's always a good thing.
Would you do it again?
You know what? Crazy as it seems, I probably would do it again. I would obviously have to see where I'm at in my life, but hypothetically speaking, if one of the producers calls me tomorrow and is like, hey, do you want to like pack up your stuff and go? I don't have too much on the go right now at this point, so I'd be like, yeah, you know what? Sign me up. It's
I think that there's an angle for the producers there too. Bring back some, favorite sons and daughters from years in the past on the program and see what they do. I mean, it's been done before on Survivor and things like that. So I think it'd be a great idea. I'd love to see what you do the next time.
I am curious to see too. I don't know if I would be at an advantage or a disadvantage. It's a very interesting thing because when you play the game the first time, you're kind of everybody there with the exception of Tim and Nikki, who came in as like special house guests and veterans on our season. Everybody else there was on an even playing field, so nobody knew anything about me, and that's kind of the way I liked it. Was I didn't want people to know stuff. I kept some stuff to myself. I didn't tell people that I was a radio news anchor at that time, that I had been in New York and studied my film and theater over there. I kept that to myself for a little bit. So it'll be interesting because when you've gone in that experience and everybody knows who you are, knows how you play and stuff, it's up to you. It's a bigger challenge, I feel like, when they look at you and they're like, well, he played it this way this time, so we got to watch out for this and we got to watch out for this. It would be
difficult. It would be difficult to not overthink, wouldn't it?
Oh, 100%, because you would be at all.
The spontaneity is going to be gone after 70 days of experience.
Yes. Yeah, very much. But yeah, I don't know too many people, even people who have won Big Brother Canada before, that wouldn't do it again given the opportunity. It's such a unique experience, and how cool is it that like we are some of the chosen dozen or so people that get to do it out of so many people in the country. That is cool in and of itself.
It's a big deal.
So, we got away from the celebrities list, but there's one more celebrity.
Oh no!
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm so sorry, Mike. One more, and then I promise you, we are finished. Ross Matthews.
No idea.
No idea. You know what? I kind of had no idea too.
This entire thing, and I brought her up myself. So who's this guy?
He's a former intern at the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He's a judge
come on.
He's a judge. I know. No. There's more to him than that. He does a lot of press stuff. He's probably more well known now for he judges RuPaul's Drag Race on like people who go on. Believe it or not, there's a show like called RuPaul's Drag Race. He does a lot of like entertainment stuff. I think he had an insider show online about like where he interviewed people from The Amazing Race and people from Survivor. So he's got an association with the a little bit with the reality TV world, and he's a personality. He's a journalist and a reporter, so you got to know a lot about a lot of different things when you're in there. So I don't know how many people will actually like know the name Ross Matthews from an audience perspective, but I think he'd do okay on an edition of Celebrity Big Brother, so it'll be interesting to see.
Well, that's great. I'm embarrassed not to know these folks, but go for it.
Well, you know what? You're not alone. Like I said, I've had a lot of people on my Twitter handle, on my Instagram, who are like, why him? But at the same time, there's, you're not going to get the Tom Hankses. You're not going to get the Academy Award winning actresses and stuff because they've got a lot of stuff on the go. They can't put aside a couple weeks to do a show like this. So
and they've got everything to lose and not a lot to gain too.
Yes, for sure, 100%.
So you just you don't want to be annoying your core audience out there by making a fool of yourself somehow. So. I can understand that. So, what's great about this is that whoever does do well on this show is certainly going to have a leg up on their careers. I mean, it's going to be very positive for them no matter what, if you even last a week.
Yeah, you know what? And that's an interesting point that I didn't even think about until just now. Is my understanding is most celebrity shows, be it like a Dancing with the Stars or Celebrity Apprentice, I know for sure. Most of these shows, when there's just celebrities that go on it, they're playing for a charity. Now, my understanding is that for Celebrity Big Brother, that is not going to be the case. I believe the grand prize is $250,000, obviously taxed on that because it's in the U.S., but I think that's going to lead to some interesting gameplay and more sort of hard work. But it's definitely generated a lot of controversy from people, the fact that these were celebrities, but they might not necessarily be playing for charity. They'll be like collecting that money themselves.
Huh. That is interesting. I don't know how to look at that or respond to that, because, you know, I think both of us agree that the level of celebrity that most of these folks are at wouldn't come along with a big price tag. Mm-hmm. So in a year's, I mean, that's a lot of money.
Sure.
So, you know, I mean, so any of those folks, I'm sure could use it. But I would have thought it would stay, the show would stay pure and do this as a celebrity gift-giving opportunity too, but apparently not.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is at least my understanding. We'll see how
that
it
could
plans
change
out.
too, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean it's not to say that these people, like you said, aren't maybe the mega celebrities that we think of that are like walking the red carpet all the time, but they still have made a pretty decent living for themselves through the years. And you would think, unless they were like really, really careless with their money, and maybe they weren't, you know, they could afford to like play for a charity and give it away. But we'll see.
You know, if I was the producers, what I would do?
What's that?
Go ahead, give the winner the $250,000, and then at the last minute say, and on top of that, we're going to match it with the charity of your choice. $250,000 goes to whom?
But that's not all. Pick one of these couches, and not all.
But wait, there's more. I've done a few of those, but you know what? The one that got me the most money over the years was, and back in the day when you had to do this, was void where prohibited by law. Oh God.
Well, that is going to do it for Random Thoughts for the very first edition. Michael Bell, want to thank you for being on my podcast. For people who want to follow you, who want to follow your podcast, find out what Michael Bell is up to, how can they do so?
Oh, well, you can go to wrinklednotdead.com, source of everything to do with wrinkledness. And we'd love to have you as a listener. And you know what? What I learned from doing this with you today, Joel, is I think the secret to successful podcasting is having your listeners feel like they're sitting around in the living room having a beer with you. And this conversation today has felt exactly like that. So I know you're well on your way, and I know your show is going to be very successful. Random Thoughts is going to be huge.
Thank you so much for that, Michael. Really, really appreciate it. Of course, guys, stay tuned. Tomorrow, I'll be doing a podcast with Mcgrath Olson. We'll be breaking down the entire cast, Mcgrath from Big Brother 15. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day, everybody. Toodles.